So now that we've had a little bit of time to talk, let's dive in with the kind of the basic, boring ass opening question because I just refuse to sit and think of a better one. Let's do the introduction, man. Who are you? Little background on yourself and kind of why we're having this talk.
My name is Mark. I'm in a band called Hungover. I sing. And after a little bit of a hiatus, we've come back and we have like a new energy. And with that new energy came new music and a new record. And uh, my life kind of revolves around that right now.
Yeah, awesome. Um, so the hiatus and return, I definitely wanted to talk about because you guys are in this. I just talked to Felicity last night. I just talked to Mark from 408 a couple weeks ago.
Dude, I did
Grayson
a deep
Zane down
dive
there. Yeah.
right before I always like look up the publication before we do something. Uh, so all those people you just mentioned, we've toured with Charlie from
Yep.
Floor Space when he was
For
in Keep
space.
Flying a bunch of times. And I just scrolled and I was like, homies, 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 like so crazy.
Yeah. So like what I just talked to Felicity about last night literally was this the Orlando music scene, man. Like what the fuck is going on down there? It is on fire.
Um, I don't know, man. Like it's something's in the water for sure. Um, I want to credit a lot of the all musicians are great. You can throw a rock and hit a good songwriter, probably. It's
Right.
it's kind of nuts. Like I saw in that Felicity video, they mentioned 408, Mag Park, Meet Me at the Altar, all these people. Um, but there's also so many incredible producers
Mm-hmm.
that it's like so in the audio compound, you have Andrew Wade, Andy Karpovic, um, Kyle Hoffer's really awesome. I've worked with him on a bunch of stuff. Sean Dolich, he's out in Daytona, but he worked on our record that we just did. He wrote on the Broadside record. He's in Mood Ring. He like just I could go on and on and on and on and on. It's just like when there are enough people in the same area with talent who want it that are also willing to help each other, it's bound to be good. Like it's not that crazy to imagine like Felicity 408 hungover, like that kind of bill and
Mm-hmm.
see it and go like, oh, is this a tour package? Like, no, it's just like a one-off in
Right.
Orlando. It uh just one hand washes the other and like it's really cool that like not a lot of people suck. like
Yeah.
like it's nice when everybody gets along and you're like, oh, like we have things in common and we can vibe and everybody just wants to help out, you know. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. That's similar to what Andrew from Felicity was saying last night too, is like there's obviously there's ego, right? Because there has to be. It's music. But he was making the comment that like even with all the ego, if you will, none of it is negative towards anybody else. It's all this positive, healthy competition, and it's like, okay, you guys did that, cool. We're going to try to one up you out of fun
Yeah.
and do this other thing, and just the amount of guest vocals that are available down there between Mag Park, the guys in Felicity, Grayson, you guys, like it's so rich of an environment. It's really like I think it's funny because again, having done music journalism for 20 years, Florida's always had talent, but it gets overlooked for the New Yorks and the LAs and all these other places. And it's like, but have y'all like slowed down and really looked at the bands that come out of Florida because it's nuts.
Yeah, it's and as long as I could as long as I've known about local music, the bands have all been incredible. Like even like out of high school, um, I remember I had a bunch of friends in this band Broadway that I eventually went on to play with, and that's how I met Sean, who's in our band. Um, it went from local churches, like VFW type situations, to all of a sudden they're on Fuse. And it was like before that, it was A Day to Remember. Like before that, it was Under Oath. Like there's always just been these like marquee bands, and then everybody not necessarily follows in the footsteps, but like they'll help each other out. And then I think even last year, I believe it was A Day to Remember and Under Oath are doing like one-off shows at the House of Blues Orlando, selling out like 3 nights in a row, you know?
Yeah.
So like that camaraderie sticks around and It's really, really crazy. It's like being the fan of a winning sports franchise.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I'm gonna dog on you. Florida hasn't had one of those in a while, so
It's rough. I'm actually I'm from like Long Island,
okay.
Queens border.
Yep.
So I'm a Mets fan, which isn't winning at
I was
all.
gonna say that wasn't
Uh,
better.
uh, the Islanders have gotten to the playoffs a couple times over the
There you
last
go.
few years.
Yep.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. It all sucks.
I
Like it's all
I
bad.
really can't dog on anybody though, because I'm a Cubs fan, and short of this last World Series that we won, like 100 plus years. You know what I mean? I'm a
Yeah.
Saints fan. It was always let's get to the dance, but we're not gonna take it.
How do you become a Cubs fan and a Saints fan?
So I'm based out of Central Indiana. My
Okay,
grandmother was always a Cubs fan growing up, so that just became
makes
the team
sense.
that I watched. And then Drew Brees went to Purdue, which is like 45 minutes away from where I grew up. So
God,
seeing him at Purdue, and then it carried over into the Saints.
that makes sense.
Yeah, but I get shit on all the time because people are like, "You guys, you have the Pacers, you have the Colts. There's so many
Yeah.
other teams you could be fans of." No, I'm good. um, so yeah, like the audio compound for people that aren't familiar, let's talk about that a little bit because I think the misconception is that it's this generic name given to like, oh, it's just their version of like the Nashville songwriting circles. It's not at all.
No.
Like it is such a unique collaborative adventure that you guys are in. What's kind of that like in the mentality that goes into working in that group?
So what's interesting about us is we kind of went the opposite way that everybody in Orlando goes. This last record and the record prior, we didn't go to the audio compound.
Okay.
But we
Okay.
have worked there before. I've done guest vocals there before for other bands. And actually, Hungover has existed as a band in general for like a decade. And we worked on an EP with our old singer, with Andy Karpovic, when
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't even a building, it was in their house, which was super crazy because you had Andy, this like budding newer producer, and then down the hall while we're working on our EP as a local band, there's Wage War working on their first record, and Jeremy McKinnon is
Yeah.
producing it, and it's just one of those situations to where like you never really know who you're gonna go run into when you're at the audio compound. Um, you never know who's gonna pop in. You never like, and it's just a matter of like sometimes you make an impression on someone, sometimes you make a connection, um, and it's crazy to see the amount of successful work that they've produced. Like as a, it's two of them. Like they have people come in and help or whatever
Yeah.
sometimes, but like the two head honchos, and like I can name so many projects that have come out over the last couple of years, like all the Mag Park projects, Felicity, Brave Weather is probably one of my favorite local bands, if not my favorite. It just goes on and on and on and on and on, and it's just like it's undeniable that I don't know what it is exactly that they do that makes
Right.
everything so different and so polished and so just exactly what it needs to be, but it almost seems like they have it down to a science. Like I've never thought about an audio company as dynastic until like
Yeah.
the audio compound. It's crazy. They have a good team over there and it's a great space and it's just freaking cool, man.
Yeah. Well, and like, the feel that I get, this is going to be big ups to them. We don't have to keep bragging on them, but they've kind of got the Neil Avron feel now, right? Like Neil in the early 2000s, anything pop punk, it went through Neil's hands.
Yeah.
And now it feels like that's what the audio compound is really, especially with the Florida based bands, but just in general, it seems like Andy and everyone in that area is like getting their fingers on stuff and it's just elevating the scene so much.
Yeah. 100%. I remember at some point, I'm paraphrasing here because this was so long ago, but at one point I got a text message from Andy that was like, "Our working relationship is inevitable." It's just dude, like the way that it was worded and the swagger, I was like, "Damn, dude, like, I guess it is like
Yeah.
that's the way you charm someone, you know? Like it just makes sense, and like some people like can only work with certain uh artists or producers or vice versa or whatever.
Yeah.
They really seem like they have a handle on like meeting you where you are and then elevating your project. So it's just so cool. What they're doing is
Yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah. So for you, going through the hiatus, a pandemic hitting in Florida, hitting the world, but Florida was affected pretty heavily with some of the lockdowns that you guys had and some of the obvious controversy we don't have to get into the politics of, but what was it like, kind of going through that and that decision that, the the band needs to take hold again?
So what was really interesting was we were kind of experiencing some growing pains. Uh Maybe a year before the pandemic, we had just done like a ton of DIY touring. We kind of ran out of money. Uh, we were running out of gas, and when you're tired and all that, yeah, we were writing, but it wasn't at the rate that we were writing before. And about a year before the pandemic started, I found out I was gonna have a daughter. So that changes everything. I have
For
to
sure.
adjust. I have to step up financially. I have to reprioritize my life. It probably would not be becoming of me to spend the next 6 months in a van, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of had to be honest with the guys and like, hey, like I don't know what I can handle. We can record as much as possible before this happens so that we have content in the can. But like I'm kind of gonna need you guys to like fill in my gaps, like while I do this because I'm not gonna be able to put my full attention uh into this project the way that I have in the past. So we all chill. We met up in the studio a couple times. We ended up losing two guys. One guy, Austin, our old bass player, before the pandemic started, and then Evan left after like a session or two during the pandemic. But we got to spend a lot of time with ourselves and with our family. Like, you're kind of forced to be
Yeah.
on your own. And I did a couple of those like Instagram live shows, acoustic in his room. Actually, I did a bunch of
Hmm.
them. Uh, and I just realized while I had all this time on my hands that I didn't think I was going to have, that I started writing more, and that writing kind of turned into a record. And the same with the other guys. So then maybe after maybe like 6 months of being in the pandemic, we are like, okay, like we kind of know what we're dealing with now. I'm actually a barber as a day job, so like I was like, I'm getting out of the world. I'm wearing a mask at work, and like I haven't gotten sick yet. Feel comfortable. Maybe let's like slowly start chipping away at this again and see how it feels. So Sean would go and demo and track all his parts, do his thing. Then I would go. Then we would send them to Gabe, and he would like talk about what he wanted for drums. But we weren't really getting together all at the same time. It was like one at a time, wait a couple weeks, another one at a time. And then we started to realize like these songs were really good. And we were having fun just talking about them and like looking forward to the future. And all of a sudden, I had plans for what I wanted to call the record, what I want the vibe to be, what I want the live show to look like. And it's just like, well, we have to do something with this, and we kind of have like a record label obligation. So let's put out a record, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns
So
out legally binding contracts are important.
yeah, so and not that that was the reasoning, but it's like, all right, like we're kind of set up to do this, so let's just do it. Um,
Yeah.
so we started working on that, and everything really started to roll, and we became really critical of ourselves. And at this point, we realized it's been 4 years since we've really put out a whole body of work. Let's do our best to make absolutely sure that this is the best product that we could deliver to our listeners. So then all of a sudden, we're re-recording demos. Then we're re-recording demos again. So like the final version of the record that's about to come out has been recorded probably 4 times over. Um, and like parts are Frankenstein and all this stuff. Um, but it's nuts to I feel like it was a lifetime ago that we decided to take a break, and then the world shit the bed, and then uh, the break got even longer than we thought it was going to be. We never really like broke up, but we were
Right.
just like, we're going to put a bookmark in this, and we might have to reread some stuff later, but we're going to finish the book, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it was so weird because I feel like people hate when I use this as an analogy, but do you ever watch Dragon Ball Z?
Dude,
So
my favorite anime growing up. It was my entry
okay,
anime.
so do you remember the episodes where Goku and Gohan are in the hyperbolic time chamber,
Yep.
and it's a year on the inside and a day on the outside?
Yep.
So I feel like that's what the pandemic did to us. Like it was a year of like chilling, but like inside the hungover hyperbolic time chamber, we all aged about 10 years. And like you said before, there's always ego involved in music, but we developed like a more healthy ego, and there was less people in the band, so we became more decisive as a unit just because there's less voices, you know.
Yeah.
um and it just it felt like maybe the band wouldn't still be a band if it would have just kept going. Like we wouldn't have had the time to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and go like, here's where our issues were. This is how the band should have functioned the whole time. Um, and we had to take a bunch of steps back to see that, but now we
Yeah.
can finally move forward knowing that this is how it should work.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it always feels gross to think about the band as a business, but that's what it is, right? So, like, when you take a step back and realize, like, okay, to your point earlier, we're running out of gas physically, emotionally, and literally on the road. We're starting to run out of money. Like, we have to figure out how to make this profitable
Yeah,
for not only money, because we live in, capitalist America,
yeah,
but also, like, internally, how is this profitable to me? Does it give me a fuel and a passion, or is it just sucking the life out of me and I'm not having fun anymore?
yeah, 100%. And I feel like a lot of bands fail because they start to get jaded and then they're just doing it because they feel like they're supposed to do it and they don't know what else to do. And they know they love playing music, but maybe the situation's not working. Um, but now it is more so the punk thing to do, to talk about your feelings and be
Right.
open and express or whatever. But maybe 10 years ago, when there was a little more of a stigma about mental health and emotional well-being and all that stuff, maybe you don't talk about what the problems are. But I feel like we arrived at a place, especially through the pandemic, where it was just easier to get those things out and get them sorted. And once you're good on a personal level, it's way easier to approach the business and go like, okay, obviously this is not working.
Mm-hmm.
And so we played a anniversary show for Wilt in April, and we hadn't played a show since I think it had been like a year and a half. It had been a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was like the most profitable show we've ever had. It was insane. Like, and I was like, oh, if you just look at what you're doing wrong and then you change all that stuff, it's better. Like,
Weird,
it's
right?
way better. Yeah, it's so weird.
What was it like, coming to those realizations? Because, like you said, like on a punk scale, there are definitely bands that they don't want to admit, like, maybe this isn't the project, like,
Yeah.
I've got the talent, but maybe this isn't the project. What's it like coming to that realization? Not that this isn't the project, but that we've kind of fucked the system up and we need to reprogram what we're doing.
Um, it's interesting because I don't think any of us ever had the feeling that this wasn't the project. Um, like I've always felt really good about songs, like sonically, like where Hungover exists. I've always felt like we were in the right place for what we want and like where the market is. Like I've always felt like we were competitive. Um, Competitive might not be the best word, but like we could stack up with our contemporaries.
Yeah.
Um, but I think initially we're all kind of coming from the standpoint of how do I word this? The songs are good, and that's it. That's all we need. The songs are good, and we play hard, and like that's it. And I think that was just naivety, you know. Like I think we had to make some of those mistakes to end up uh, being able to recognize them and to have that perspective. Because if we would have just kept doing the same thing that that was kind of working but not really working, like we would have burned out a lot faster. So
Yeah.
it was cool that we were all at a point where we were like we could go, we're approaching burnout, but we're not quite there yet, so let's stop before like we get
Right.
super super burned out. But it's just weird. It's a weird place to be, and it's an even weirder place to articulate. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, with a point that you just made, a lot of artists, I feel like, do have that feeling of like, well, the music's good. If I post it, it's out on streaming services, it's on YouTube, whatever, like I'll be found. It'll be good. Like
If you
everything's
build it,
good.
they will come.
Right.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, in the music industry, especially nowadays, because of how easy it is to put out music, that's not the case. Like if you're not out there marketing and hustling a little bit, you're just going to be lost in the mud. And I
you'd
think,
have to get real lucky,
yeah,
real lucky.
yeah. And that, like thinking back, I forget who I was talking to about this a while back, but like Justin Bieber's don't happen anymore, right? Like that kid got super lucky, happened to have one viral video, and boom, the world blew up for him. That
Dude,
shit does not happen.
I remember. Have you ever been to Central Florida before?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Yeah.
familiar with Celebration?
I've heard of it. I've not been there, but I know roughly where you're talking.
So it was literally a Disney town.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like it. It looks like you're in like the Halloween Town movie or something. Like
Right.
it's like painfully suburban. Uh, but they used to, I don't know if they still do, shut down the main street and barricade it off, and they would have these gigantic concerts, usually like Radio Disney or whatever.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I was dating a girl who was obsessed with Justin Bieber, like right when he came out. She goes, he's playing this free show at Celebration. I was like, oh, that's cool. Let's go. Like I was expecting like 1,000, 2,000 people just because it was like a free thing, you know.
Yeah.
We pull up. It's right after that first like super viral hit. It was Baby maybe. I don't
Yeah.
really
Baby,
remember.
baby, baby, or whatever the fuck
Yeah.
that was. Yeah.
I don't. That might have not even been like the big song, but like the big song had just come out. Um, and we got there early because we wanted to be close up. And I remember turning around after like 20 minutes of standing there, and it was people as far. It looked like Woodstock. Like there were
Yeah.
so many people, and it's just like it almost obviously it wasn't an overnight sensation. Like there's so much work that goes into
Right.
getting a project there, but like I just couldn't believe it. I was like, how are there this many people on Main Street in Celebration? Like, where did they park? How did like literally how did they get here? All these people had the drive to show up to this thing because they're in love with this 14-year-old kid. Like it just blew my mind. Like what a moment in pop music.
Yeah. But and one that hasn't really been replicated, right? Like there've been like it I don't mean this to be offensive to anybody. There've been flashes in the pan, right? Like
Yeah.
Olivia Rodrigo is incredible. She's got great talent. She's doing very well. But like she was one that kind of it seemed like, oh shit, here's our next Justin Bieber moment. Like she's gonna blow
Yeah.
up. And then it was like, oh no, this is gonna be a slow climb. That's okay. We're good with that.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting because she's of the right age where streaming has been around the whole time.
Mm,
And you get into this thing where people latch on to that one song and that's all they care about. So then it
yeah.
starts to trail off a little bit and you're like, okay, well, now I have to just chase million stream music, but how do I do that?
Yeah. That was so that was really that kind of ties into something that we did when we were picking out singles. I made a mistake, and I apologize to everyone who listens to our band that found us on TikTok. About a year ago, we posted a teaser of Shake It Off. And I did not know, there's no way I could have known that people were going to be so about this song. And it was like a second mix of like four mixes. I was
Yeah.
just like so frustrated. It was taking so long to get the project out. I posted a tweet that said, I'm so excited about this record. I'm just going to start leaking it on TikTok. And Smart Punk liked it. And I was like, that's all the validation I need. I'm posting teasers, baby.
Yep.
And for the next year, people would continue to go back to that video and ask, where's this song? Where is this song? Coming back to see if this song is out. Where is this song? And when we started picking out singles, we knew that that would be a single for obvious reasons.
Right.
Um, and we were picking them out, and I was like, I want to pick out put shake it off out first because like it's popping on TikTok right now. And Matt Burns, our A&R, was like, bad idea. And I was like, why? He goes, let's put out one other song first, so that when you put out Shake It Off, they immediately have another new song to go to, and then they'll discover the rest of your discography. And I was like, I hate how right that is because I
Yeah.
wanted to put it out so bad, but it gave us something to build towards a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think that's it too. Is a lot of artists of varying sizes are so quick to put out, here's a new track, and then people love it. We were just talking. Was that my conversation with Mark from 408? The attention span of people. They listen to that song for a week, 2 weeks straight, and then they go, okay, I need something new. And you don't
yeah,
have anything else to give them. And it's like, not that you should be releasing music every 2 weeks. Don't anybody fucking do that.
yeah,
But when there's no like backlog and catalog of stuff that they can go, well, that one was dope. They probably have some other stuff. Let's go dig. You know, if you're
that's what.
Go
Oh
ahead. I
no, go
was
ahead.
just gonna say if you're just dropping a single as a like, hey, our band's brand new, here's our single, probably not the best format to do it.
Yeah, that's what was so exciting about TikTok when we started using it. We were a little late to the game. I posted one time on our Instagram story. I was like, "Hey, we have a TikTok. If you guys want to follow it." I think we got 50 followers that day. Like nothing too crazy. And I never posted about it on any other social again. So all the followers we've gotten on TikTok from that original 50 have been, and it's not like a crazy number or anything, but it's all been organic. It's all been through hashtags. It's all been through interactions, people tagging us uh, in stuff, people tagging their friends in the comments. It's all 100% organic. So it kind of gave our old songs a new life because yeah, we have this whole audience on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter that we've already established, and we know that they're going to come back to the music, but now there's this whole new audience of people who are discovering the music for the first time and are having like exciting conversations about it and all that stuff. And it's exciting as a songwriter to go like, oh, like this isn't dead yet, like there's still life in this, it can still be
Yeah.
discovered. It's great. I have some buddies in a band called Coyote Theory.
Mm-hmm.
They had a huge viral hit, uh, I think 2 years ago on TikTok out of nowhere. What's crazy is they wrote the songs when we were 16. The songs came out when we were 17, and then they broke up because they saw a lot of success really quickly, and 17-year-olds can't handle that on their own.
Yeah.
So 12, 13 years later, all of a sudden they have a viral song, they're getting a certified gold record. Like, and it's all because someone shared something on TikTok and it just steamrolled. And it's just so crazy how people can rediscover, or not rediscover, can discover your stuff for the first time, and it's new to them. And I think that's
Right.
something that's important to keep in mind as an artist in 2023 is like, yes, as important it is as it is to be moving towards the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. If you only focus on that new thing, you might miss someone who that song on the last EP might have been their favorite song ever, and now they're never going to hear it. So
Right.
I don't know. It's like the Wild West for sure.
Yeah. Well, and the fucking algorithms, man.
It's my
Nobody,
least favorite word. It's my
right?
least
Like,
favorite word. It's a dirty
because
word.
there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like, I know on the back end, from a software development standpoint, there is some fucking formula,
Yeah,
but the fact that there's no way to truly figure out on our side, the consumer side or the creator side, like, hey, this is what you need to do,
yeah,
and it's these specific things that matter, like the number of hashtags you use, which hashtags you use. This is what, we can kind of track the analytics of like some of the hashtags, but posting times and stuff.
yeah.
But that's not really fixing the fucking algorithm for us.
And how is a human? I mean, I know there are apps that like can schedule posts or whatever the case is. how as a human are you going, it's 6:30. I have to post right now. Like it's so difficult to be on top of it. And then I've heard people say you need to be posting 3, 4 times a day. I've heard people say once a day is fine. I've heard people say you can't miss a single day. I've heard people say like, oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Use this many hashtags. Use this many. And I've never heard the same thing twice. It's
Right.
always different. It's always mixed up. And it's so, I don't know. It's weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, well, and like I mean, for me, honestly, I just started using TikTok to, break up some of the podcast into clips and things like
Yeah.
that. And so like last night I posted one, it was a clip of Mark from 408. Within an hour, 800 plus views, like it's taken off. I post one today at like 11, it's at like 50 fucking views, man. Like it
Yeah.
missed everything, and it's like what's the difference here other
What is
than the
the
time?
consistency? Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. And there's all those, multimedia companies that, oh, you give us, thousands of dollars a month and we'll make sure that your shit goes viral. And I'm like, nah, I'm
There's no
good.
way.
I ain't spending that.
Yeah, no shot.
No, the only way that they're doing it is you've got some, click farm in
Yeah.
Central Asia somewhere that's all they do is send that link to them and they all click it. And
Which is I've never understood that. I was in a band that I will not name right now. And I was so naive at the time, and all they wanted was to be like this big rise core band. And I remember I was like, holy crap, like I knew that we were starting to do well, but we have 10,000 views on this lyric video. Like, how the heck did we get that? I didn't find out until like 6 months later that like they were like paid for views. And
mm-hmm.
it never, I was like, one, that's stupid. Like, we're a local band from Central Florida. Like, no one thinks that we actually got that. You know what I mean? I guess like
Right.
for optics at first, it looks good, but two, like we could have spent money on so many other things, like instead
Yeah.
of some YouTube views. Like, that's crazy.
Well, and that's something I've warned, the youth of today about. I feel so old when I say that shit. 38, whatever. But like you can pay for Instagram likes and, followers and all this shit, and it's like, okay, that's cool. If the numbers all that matters to you, go do it. But
Yeah.
the difference is, and I think this ties into the pop punk realm especially, you can buy followers. It's easy. You get offers all the time. They're never going to interact with your shit. They're not real
Yeah.
people. They don't matter. I would much rather have 100 consistent people that are engaging with my stuff, talking about it, sharing it, whatever, and build organically, like you were saying earlier, because those people are what matter. Like if you were to be in a band with a shitload of oh, we've got 2 million Instagram followers. Okay, cool. Why are they all from Taiwan, the
Yeah.
Philippines, China? Like where are we supposed to send you to tour? You have 53 people that like you in your hometown. That's it.
Yeah. What I thought has been really interesting about coming back from this hiatus is because we weren't as active on socials, our reach isn't as strong as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I only really want to pay for ads if we're like pushing something that is on sale. Like when the record is finally available for people to purchase, ads, 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 ads. Like no problem, because I want to make sure that the people who follow us know that this is happening.
Right.
And sometimes it kind of feels like social media is like playing defense on you, like so that you can't get to your actual followers. It's like all new people,
Yeah.
so it's harder to engage. It's harder to engage with the audience that you've already established. But so, for example, Shake It Off is streaming not as well as we have had stuff stream, but we also didn't get any Spotify playlisting. We got like an Apple Music playlist, which is cool, but you can't really see what the streams are like from that,
Yeah.
which is kind of frustrating. Apple Music, if you're listening, please fix that. But what I found interesting is before, when we looked at our analytics, it would say 15 streams this week from Birmingham, 20 streams from Atlanta. Now the list of cities is smaller, but the streams are higher, which is telling me that the people that we're getting to are listening more frequently and are actually enjoying the stuff. And once they get to a certain amount of listens or whatever, and it triggers the algorithm and something spikes, maybe it will get suggested to people through Spotify radio. Maybe it will get suggested through the algorithmic playlist. And like, that's what I want. And I think that's where you find longevity. Like for example, the few songs that we've had do very, very well on Spotify, those have continued to have a life past what I really feel like they should have because of the algorithmic playlist and because of people's dedication to those songs. And it's so weird to think about and like break things down that way, but um it really could make or break a band, like how people are listening and how frequently they're listening and how many like hollow followers they have. Like it just
Yeah.
looks off when a band has 2 million Spotify or 2 million Instagram followers and 1,000 plays on Spotify. Like it just doesn't translate, you know?
Yeah. Well, and especially, it's funny. I'm gonna dog on the kids that are doing it, I guess, but it's funny because like if that's your thought process to like, oh, this will lead to me getting a PR deal and a, a label, those guys know what to look for. They're going to see
Yeah.
that discrepancy in the numbers and be like, not for us, like,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that there's not some merit to paid advertising like you're talking about. I haven't done it with the podcast or anything yet, but it's something that I've looked into because like paid ads are much different than purely buying a follower.
Yeah.
Paid ads is literally you telling the program, the social media platform, whatever, like take this thing and put it in front of these types of people. And
Yeah.
then it's up to those types of people to either like you or not. So do ads, not followers, is my life lesson for people there. But
Yeah. 100%.
for you, like you mentioned, some songs that are hanging on, maybe past when you feel like they should. I'm looking at the Spotify numbers. Do you know your number one song right now?
It's either Three's Company or Fever. It fluctuates.
It's Three's
Um,
Company by about 600,000 listens right now.
yeah.
It's insane.
Every so often, Fever will end up on a. So this is crazy. It will end up on a workout playlist, and
Mm.
then it will flip for that amount of time that it's on there. Like for forever, our number two playlist was Gold's Gym, Washington, because like I guess that song just exists at a tempo and a key that like is good for working out, or it's like the workout what the workout playlist look for.
Right.
So every so often it'll switch, but I think Three's Company is normally number one. But what's crazy about that is that hasn't been on a Spotify editorial since maybe the third month it was out. So it just all those
Yeah.
plays are coming from like people who like the song first and foremost, but like the new listens come from Spotify Radio and Discover Weekly, which is crazy that like so many people are still listening to that song 6 years later, that it's still tripping algorithms and
Yeah.
like crushing new music that we're putting out. It's so crazy.
Yeah. It is. I think for me, that song specifically, I mean, I remember listening to it when it came out too. So
Hell yeah.
there's already some nostalgia built into it, but it's such a nostalgic song, even for a first listener, that it's like, oh, I feel like I know this band, not in a
Yeah.
negative way where it's like, oh, this is cookie cutter, just in a like, it feels like home in the pop punk world.
So I think that's what is like our secret sauce as a band. Um, we have all this modern production and all these layers on top, but when you really break down the songs, a lot of them acoustically play like early 2000s pop punk music, and a lot of us have post-hardcore backgrounds. So there's like elements of like they're more tonal than what a knocked loose song would be, you know. But
Yeah.
like they do have the dynamic of a breakdown, and our influences are very obvious. If I hear that I sound like Patrick Stump or Brendan Urie one more time, my head will probably explode. But I think it kind of helps that people are like, oh, this is familiar, but I've never heard it before. It takes me back to a time. And like when I think about playing music, I feel the same way now about music that I did when I was running home after middle school to watch TRL and like hear the new Fall Out Boy song before it was on the record or on the radio or whatever. Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh, the new song's gonna premiere today. I have to be home. I'm so excited about chasing that feeling. And like as soon as I got to the level where I felt like I was making music that was, I'll go back to the word competitive. Uh I love bumping my own shit. Like
Yeah.
I love getting that feeling when I hear the thing and like it came together in the way that we wanted to, and sometimes even better. Um I think that's awesome. Like I think it's weird if you make music and you never listen to your own music. Like
Yeah.
you should, like, what's the point of making it if you can't enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, for me, you mentioned TRL. Like, I miss those golden days because, like, we're, of the same age group.
Yeah,
TRL, VH1, like behind the music, all that sort of shit. Like,
yeah,
it, we knew if Kurt Loder showed up on MTV, we were going to hear some bad news, like somebody in the
yeah.
industry had died type thing. Like, fuck.
Crazy.
But uh who is it? The Home Team just released their new single Louder. And in that music video towards the end, they do like the old VH1 pop-up video type stuff. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I miss that so much. Like it was
Dude,
such a random thing.
speaking of that music video and uh going back to the powerhouse that is Florida music and art, Sam Link did that.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam is from, we're from the same town. And well, I'm originally from Long Island, but I grew up in Kissimmee.
Yeah.
Uh, and we grew up in the same town. And to go back to that Coyote Theory band, he had started doing video and stuff for Sleeping with Sirens and all this stuff. And Sam just started like hooking him up with videos because he knew that that was going to be like a band that was going to blow up. And he worked on that Home Team video. And it's so crazy to see someone who just dedicated themselves to the craft and came from a place of like, I help you out, you help me out, and let's just make something cool. And now he's like, I I worked I think, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I'm a barber.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked my buddy's wedding and he was in the wedding party. And I was just talking to him about what he's doing now. And I was like, holy crap, like the people that you're making connections with and the things that you're doing, all that started like in downtown Kissimmee is like so crazy to me.
Yeah.
So it's not just the musicians who are making it out, it's the videographers, it's the photographers, it's I don't know how we all got here, but we sure are lucky, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk for a little bit about the new album. Drops February 23rd, according to the release that Tori gave me. When it touches the heart, everything resolves. So something I don't do anymore is ask the specifics of any song because I don't want to take away the meaning that anybody connects to it, right? Like,
Hmm.
if it's your love song, it's your love song. If it's about the singer kicking his dog, you don't want to hear that and fuck up your love
Yeah.
song. So but for you, like writing this record, prepping the new music and really wanting to put people back, we just touched on the nostalgia, like putting people back in this mindset of like, I'm comfortable here, I'm safe here type of vibe. What was it like, getting everything together? You said, it's 4 or 5 different mixes depending on the song.
Yeah.
How does it feel now that it's finished and it's almost ready to come out? Like, is that imposter syndrome coming up a little bit now?
I think record one or EP one, whatever, it's 8 songs, so I don't know that I want to call it a full LP.
Yeah.
But that felt like imposter syndrome. Like I'm this kid who just signed a record deal. I just quit my job that I had since I was 16 to go on tour. Um, it was all coming so fast. Um, I didn't feel like I had earned it yet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we're doing DIY tours and I'm taking 2 weeks off of work when I have no money. Like I'm putting the work in for sure. Um, but we worked on this for so long, and it's so, not that the last record wasn't sincere, but it was so angsty. It was so reactionary, and this is so much more thoughtful that while Wilt was like a scream, like
Mm-hmm.
like this is so much more cathartic and thoughtful and put together, and like I really made sure uh that I said exactly what I wanted to say, exactly how I wanted to say it, and was authentically myself, not in a way that like this is just my raw emotion and I'm throwing it at
Yeah.
the wall and seeing what sticks. It's more this is how I would like to project myself to the world and be perceived as an artist, and what I want to share with people versus what I want to scream because I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't really think about it as like imposter syndrome even, because at the end of the day, I'm coming from a real place.
Yeah.
Um, the whole like people listen to my music thing is kind of weird, and I don't think it will ever not be weird, because like I said earlier, deep down in my core, I'm still that 10-year-old who wants to hear the new song, or whatever, discover music. Um, but this feels so much more intentional than anything else that I've ever been a part of. So I am so excited, like, for it to not be just mine anymore. Like, the release of Reunion was the first single we put out for this record.
Hmm.
I've heard that mix 500 times, so many times. But there was a moment where I'm in my car, I'm driving to work, um, and I realized, like, oh, like, this is out now. It's not just a clip on TikTok. It's not just an idea in my head. Like, this is out. And I listened to it on Spotify, and my partner actually designed the single artwork, and it has all these references to things that have happened in our career, uh, giving reverence to certain artists, just like some Easter egg stuff in there. And I remember just like looking at it and hearing like the first like drum fill, and like just not a heavy cry, but just like a single cry, because
Yeah.
like or a single tear, because we finally put it out. Like, it's there. It feels good that it's out, and I'm not afraid of what someone's gonna think, because I know what I think and I know what I meant. And it feels so good. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really powerful thing, because I think a lot of times, again, I've been doing this for 20 years, so I've had these conversations where artists create this body of work, and then there's obviously the like nervousness to put it out there in the world a lot of times, because what will people think? Is it going to do anything? Is it going to just piss people off? Like, whatever. But when you can kind of come to terms with the fact that it's, yeah, I made this piece of art, I'm going to show it to everybody else, but I only care about what it means to me. I
Yeah.
would like for other people to like it, but at the end of the day, I like it. I don't care.
Yeah. And I think to build on that, we have way more in common with everyone than I think we give ourselves credit for. While everybody's experience is unique and different, there are so many things that are relative and so many things that are essential to making us human. So, like you said, you don't like asking about specific songs because if the singer meant it one way, and to the other person it's their love song or whatever, um, that might throw the listener off or whatever the case is. But it's so cool that I could say words and sing words and like use an inflection and a key, and it will convey emotion. And whether it's the same emotion that I'm having, uh, or not, it's fine, because at the end of the day, we're all feeling and we're all expressing. I said in another interview, um, earlier this week, someone asked me how I want people to listen to the record for the first time. And this whole experience, I've always said, uh, this record is crying while dancing. It's supposed to feel cathartic. It's supposed to feel big and small. Like, I want people to lay out on their bed, sprawled out, and like feel the weight of everything that's happening. I want people to scream. I want people to just like whatever helps you most authentically feel like yourself while you're listening to this record. That's what I want people to do, because this body of work is the thing that has made me feel most authentically like myself, because it's the first time I've written art from the or written songs and made art from the place where I am now. I feel like right now I'm the most realized version of myself personally. And that's just like fucking cool, dude. Like, I think that's where the ego part comes into play. Like, in a weird way, I have more ego on this record because I'm so comfortable with who I am, and
Yeah.
I love that that's going to be out there, and like I hope that some of these songs empower people to like be more publicly themselves and be more honest and to try and be more real. Like, so the first lyrics on the record, the first, I don't know if you got sent it or if you listened
I
to it or
haven't got to
whatever.
listen to it yet, but she did send
Um,
me the link. So
right on. Um, So the first lyric on the record is I found God on my birthday in an open field some odd years ago. We were tripping on acid by my parents' house. Um, and when you read it on paper, it's like, what the fuck? Like, what is this
Yeah.
guy talking about? But like, I wanted the record to start there very specifically because so when it touches the heart, everything resolves. What it basically boils down to is as long as you're leading with love, um, you might feel lost sometimes and things might feel weird, but everything's gonna be okay. Like you're gonna end up in the place that you need to be as long as you're passionate and loving and caring and you feel like you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Um, and the record starts at a place where like I don't know what the right thing is. I don't know um what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it. I'm like doing drugs, like so many drugs. I'm so lost. And then like throughout the record, you kind of get this journey of like the ups and the downs, where I am and where I think I am, how I felt displaced, how I felt at home in certain places. And then it goes on from there. I won't spoil the record, but um it's just it's cool, dude. Like I've never felt comfortable with myself, and I think that's a lot of people in punk, a lot of
Yeah.
people in emo, a lot of people in alternative. It's existence is, while relative, also weird. Being a human is kind of fucked up and crazy. Like so, it's cool to feel the least fucked up about being alive that I've ever felt. You know.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Sorry, I'm rambling about it,
No,
but
no, you're totally fine. I think there's a couple things I want to touch on there because you're right. Like existing is fucking bizarre.
dude, it's
And
so what are we?
you're
Like,
right,
you
right.
know,
Well, and like
so
for me, this will be a conversation for us at another time. But so I had a near death experience through the pandemic, and you know, coming
you're gonna
coming
like the
back,
record.
like coming back from that, it's like holy shit. Like I knew life was weird before, but
Yeah.
when you're that close to death's door, it's like you have this whole new perspective, and it sounds so cliche, but like there have been nights in the last almost 3 years now since it happened where I just lay awake staring at the ceiling because I can't wrap my head around what it is to be alive.
So I've only shared this with Matt Burns, our A&R, because I was like, did Tad Martin, the guy who did our album artwork, I asked him, I was like, did Tad listen to the record before he made the artwork? He was like, no, he knows the lyrics because he put them on the insert, but
Right.
I don't think he's listened to the record, maybe the singles or whatever. And I was like, that's crazy because it's not out publicly yet. But if you have Apple Music, you can see it because it's set up for the 23rd.
Yeah.
Um, the album artwork is this like swirl of pink and orange. And I had a near death experience where, like I said at the beginning of the record, I was doing all the drugs. And I just had a moment where like I legitimately thought I was having a heart attack. Had to go. I'll make this a short story because I could talk about this for in a whole other podcast.
Which we'll
I have to.
definitely do. We'll link up for
Yeah,
that.
I had to ask my mom to drive me to the hospital, and she was like, "Why?" And I was like, "I've been doing a lot of drugs, and I don't know which one of them is doing this to me." Like, so sorry.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm in the hospital bed, and the next thing I know, out light at the end of the tunnel, all these swirls of pink and orange and yellow and all this stuff. And when I when I saw the album artwork, I was like, this is fucked up because there are songs that relate indirectly to that near death experience. And like those were the colors that I saw. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's so crazy that like someone like got a snippet of the art and like just like somehow got this connection and was like, oh yeah, these colors. And I was like, how did he do that? And Matt goes, he just followed the vision board. I don't know what you're talking about, but okay, cool. And I was like, all right, I just admitted to my friend that I did a lot of drugs and almost died. Like that's what the
Right.
record is about. Um, but it's wild. It's wild. Existence is
It
weird. But sorry, I cut you
no, no,
off. My
you're no, you're totally fine. And that's basically what I was gonna say about it too, is like existence is just it's fucking weird. And there's I'm gonna forget his fucking name now. There's a comedian where he I want to say it's Pete or something now, but I can't remember.
Is it
Anyway, he's
Pete
talking
Holmes?
about it was Pete Holmes, and he
Love
talks
him.
about you think you're on Earth right now, like zoom out because in the grand scheme of things, we are fucking nothing. Like
Dude,
life
that guy
makes no
rocks.
sense. He has a this joke line that he's doing is how life makes no sense. Like we're all made of molecules, but science can't explain why when I knock my hand against a stool, those molecules don't like mix together. Why
Yeah,
don't we like? There's so much shit. We just literally scientists go, I don't know. It just doesn't work that way.
yeah.
How are
So,
we okay with
so I have two kids. My son is
that?
7, and he's in the age of inquisition, you know, like he always
Yeah.
wants to know, he always wants to ask, and he's smart. Like I'm so screwed. Like he's very smart, a literally gifted child. And we're driving the other day to the gas station. We've been in the car for all of 5 minutes. um and his sister falls asleep immediately. He goes, Dad, where do humans come from? And I was like, oh no, like I'm not
Yeah.
prepped for this at
Right.
all. I
Not at
was like,
7 years
oh
old. Come on.
yeah, I was like, dude, like I thought I had 6 years like
Yeah.
before this conversation. And I don't know like how he means the question.
Right.
So I was like, what do you think, bud? And he goes, well, dinosaurs, cavemen, probably cave kids before cavemen. I'm like, oh, he's coming from like someone explained evolution to him
Yeah.
and he's trying to piece it together. And I was like, yeah, a lot of people think that. And then he goes, what do you think? And I was like, I try not to think about it because if I did think about it, I would think about it all the time and I would probably never stop. And then he goes, I think about it a lot. And I was like, I'm in so much trouble. Like that he's
Yeah.
like a philosopher at 7. Like, so what a world, what a life. So
It,
crazy.
yeah. It's nuts. So as we transition to the end here, I do think that we're going to link up for another podcast, and we'll go down those near death experiences and
Yeah.
talk about some of that because I run another podcast. I don't know if Tori told you, called Musicians for Mental Health, and I think
Okay.
that'd be great to talk about what that you know does to your psyche and how
Yeah, dude.
you
I would
cope
love
with
to
that
know.
sort of stuff. So for sure. But as we transition to the end, I refuse to think of better questions. So I bought this game called Hot Takes. It's just a
Okay.
bunch of shitty fucking opinion questions, and we're gonna go
Hell
through a
yeah.
couple and agree, disagree. We can expand on some, whatever. The first one is if you drink all of the Kool-Aid from the Kool-Aid man, he will live. I think it depends. Do you believe that the Kool-Aid man is the pitcher or is he the Kool-Aid inside?
The Kool-Aid man is the pitcher, but the Kool-Aid is his soul.
Mm,
Yeah. So if you drink all the Kool-Aid, then he will still be animated, but uh will be very dull.
yeah. Okay. Okay. We got a little philosophical right there.
I was warmed up. I was primed for that.
Right, right. Let's see. Everyone has a soulmate. I don't know how that's a hot take.
Um,
I don't think it's always a romantic soulmate, but I think everybody has somebody else on the planet that is meant to be in their life.
I agree. I don't agree with that in the sense that there's only one person.
That's fair.
But I do think there are like people that you're destined to meet. Like I've known my best friend since we were 11.
Yeah.
Like we often joke that our friendship is old enough to buy cigarettes. So um so yeah, I would agree that there's just some people that you're gonna meet no matter what.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Absolutely fair. Uh this one's funny because I had a band on that we discovered the female lead singer is okay with peeing in pools. This one is it's totally okay to pee in the shower,
Yeah,
right? You're already
yeah,
rinsing off and everything. Who cares?
yeah, dude. I mean, like, try not to pee on your feet. You know,
Right.
like let's be civilized about it. But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
sure, why not?
Now I'll take it a step further. It is not okay to shit in the shower and try to just like stomp it down the drain.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, that's yeah. not at all.
Yeah. All right. And then let's do for the last one. I'm going to use it. Cancel culture has gotten out of hand.
That's a loaded one for sure.
It is, and that's
Um,
that's why I said I'm going to fucking do it now cuz why not,
so
right? Here you want mine while you're formulating yours. I think
yeah,
cancel culture has gotten out of hand in the sense that we get upset about too many little things and don't focus on the big things that we should be worried about.
yeah. It's such it's so gray, it's so black and white at the same time.
Yes.
There are certain things that people do, and we all know what they are, that are that are grounds to say people don't feel safe knowing that you are this kind of person and do
Yes.
this sort of thing. However, there are things, and we also know what those are, uh, that are forgivable and people make mistakes. Um, for example, um, I did a lot of drugs, a lot. Like some people would say that I was an addict, like that I was addicted to drugs. I don't know that necessarily I would. Some people would say that. Um, if someone were to portray me in a negative light and then say he did a lot of drugs and like that was the what they were leaning on,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I should be canceled for doing drugs.
Right.
But some people might deem that as a cancelable offense, and the way that things are worded and pitched, etc., um, can make it seem worse than it is. If
Yes.
you abuse someone, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're donezo. Like this, especially in our scene, all spaces should be safe spaces.
Yes.
Um, there's there's a lot of people that I think have been very justly exiled and voted off
Mm-hmm.
the island, and that is fine with me. But I also think we need to leave room for people who are not necessarily hurting others to be forgiven and work on themselves. And
Right.
the people who get canceled for real reasons, just reasons, like big problems, like should also be working on themselves. I don't think
Yeah.
that you should be outcast from society and then just go, well, I'm going to keep being shitty. Like that should be a signal for change if someone is
Right.
saying, hey, the things that you have done are unforgivable and reprehensible. Like, um, but if you accidentally called someone something mean, uh, like if I called you a dum dum, I
Right.
don't think I should get canceled for that, especially if I didn't mean it in my heart of hearts. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, Yeah, it's that's such a loaded question. That's a toughie to answer because then I go back and I think like, no, fuck that guy. Like, he
Right.
definitely should be canceled.
Yeah.
But
I think part of it too is that society has changed so much over the years as well. So, like, what is
yeah,
acceptable, we've adjusted our definitions of a lot of those things.
a hundred
So,
percent.
thinking about comedians, not that all those jokes should have been made at the time, but like
Yeah,
shock comedy was a thing for a very long time.
100%.
And to dig back, 20 years, 30 years on somebody and be like, well, remember when he made this joke? And it's like, okay, but that was 30 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Um, I also think there is a gap in accountability to where I think a lot of people are afraid to have these conversations early. Like,
Yes.
hey, friend, you are exhibiting behaviors that are not chill. And we need to do something about that. As your friend, I would like to hold you accountable. And then a lot of these, I feel like in our scene, I'm not saying every time, but a lot of the times, it is these man child babies who exist in I sometimes refer to it as Neverland.
Mm-hmm.
You get into a successful band when you're 17, 18, all your life is taken care of, every single part of your day is planned. All of a sudden you don't have accountability, everybody you meet loves you, and depending on what kind of person you are, you might think like maybe I could start getting away with a little bit more, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
I think those guys need to be checked. Like, I think that if someone is doing something sketchy or even just like has an air of something sketchy, you should have people around you who are able to go like, hey dude, this is starting
Yeah.
to look not chill, and I want to make sure that you're okay as a person, and that
Right.
like this doesn't get worse. um so it's crazy, and I feel like I feel so, I don't know how to put a word on it, but I feel the way I feel because I've had so many people in my life through music that I thought were wonderful, wonderful people, and then ended up being dirt balls.
Yeah.
Um, and it's because like no one ever held them accountable. So then they just kind of like work through the system, and everybody thinks they're this like charming person. And then someone finally gets the balls to go, they're not nice. Like they're
Yeah.
evil, they are mean. So it's just, I don't think it works the way that people would like for it to work.
Right.
Um, and on the other side of that coin, I get feeling helpless and like this is the only thing that you could do. And like I feel like a lot of the times when people do, I don't want to say like seek out to cancel someone, but tell their side of the story,
Hmm.
or let people know that someone is doing something that's not cool, it really is like, this is all I feel like I can do. It's like a move of
Right.
desperation, might not be the right word, but like I feel so lost and alone in this, and I just need to let people know. So it's like the Hail Mary of like, this happened to me, this happened around me, this person needs help and to be held accountable, and they haven't, and I don't like it.
Right.
So where a system has failed us and where accountability is lacking, I do think parts of it are necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with everything you said there. And I think, to just piggyback it for a second, I think the key is, like you said, the accountability, making sure that they understand, like, hey, this thing, whatever it may be, is not the right way that you should be as a human being. Um, but I think too, like, unfortunately, the overcorrection is, let's cancel him instead of, hey, this is the wake up call. Like, let's try to help first. That's the
yeah,
part that I think I get frustrated with, is we immediately go to fuck them, they should be out of society. And certain ones, absolutely. Like, we know
yeah.
who those people are. But sometimes it's like, instead of fuck them, get them out of society, why isn't it like, hey, man, let's sit down and let's talk about this. Let's get you the help that you need.
So I think this conversation specifically, like between the two of us, is very important. Not saying you or I are like icons or like massive
Right.
celebrities or whatever. But I do think that it is important that people who have any sort of influence, any sort of platform, any sort of situation where people have eyes on them, it is important that at the very least we display behaviors and behave in such a way that people look to us as an example, because most people are not being looked at. Most people can go through life and like they know their coworkers, their family, their friends, whatever. But the fact that someone will watch this that neither of us know means that we have a responsibility to hold ourselves to a higher regard and an esteem, so that people know this podcast is a safe space.
Right.
A hungover show is a safe space. Um, these are the things that should be reflected in the values that should be had in the way that we should conduct ourselves in alternative spaces, in DIY, in punk, whatever. And it's such an important conversation. And so many people are afraid to have that conversation because they don't want to piss someone off or they don't want to say the right thing. Like even me right now, I'm kind of like searching for the words to make sure that it's
Yeah.
landing exactly the way that I want it to land. But yeah, that's such a loaded question. There's so that's a third podcast. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
We can definitely
Um,
do that. And like, I've not that thing specifically, not necessarily cancel culture specifically, but one of my ideas for a podcast coming up at some point is doing kind of a panel type of thing where, like, let's get 5, 6, 7 of us on a call and
yeah,
let's talk out these types of issues. And like, so that, like you said, so that when people that we don't know see it, can go, okay, like these guys are talking it through. Like they're leading us a little bit, but like I need to have these conversations in my life too. Like, where is that line for me? What does that look
Yeah.
like? But yeah, definitely think, we've got more conversations that we can have for sure. So
Yeah.
to kind of transition to the final segment, is the traditional outro, man. Take as long as you need. I'll obviously link all the socials and stuff, but promote your stuff, tell them where to find you, how to interact, all that fun stuff.
Do you know when this will come out?
This will be going out. Give me a second and I'll tell you. It'll be before the album if that's what you're worried about. This will be going out on January 3rd.
Cool. When It Touches the Heart, Everything Resolved comes out February 23rd on Smart Punk Records. It will be available for pre-order on January 30th, which is the same day that our third single, Out of Body, comes out. Out of Body is my favorite song that I've ever written, ever, ever, ever. It is a coming of age song, and I feel like it encompasses everything that we kind of talked about earlier in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And Shake It Off and Reunion are out now. So Out of Body will be out in a couple weeks. The record a few weeks after that. We may or may not have announced a very cool release show by the time this comes out. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But
Yeah.
that'll be super cool. Look out for Hungover in Places in 2024. A lot of stuff is not announced yet. We're very, very excited about being back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome, man.
Hungover band on everything.
Yeah. Sweet. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I listened to Wilt back in the day, and I think I was looking over the Spotify. Like I know I've listened to the other the EPs and stuff, and I'm just like, I think that I caught you guys like right as Wilt dropped,
Yeah.
like fully dropped. So but I've never got to see you guys live. So that's gonna fucking happen hopefully in 2024.
Where are you at?
About an hour north of Indianapolis. So if it's Indianapolis, Chicago, Cincinnati, Louisville, Kentucky, Detroit, Michigan, I can be there in 3 to 4 hours tops. And
Okay.
that's totally doable for me. So anywhere in the Midwest, basically, I got you.
We'll figure something out. We'll get you to a gig.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, dude, I'll follow you and stuff after this, and
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what you think about the record because I feel like we have a lot in common.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll definitely be checking it out. Like I said, I just haven't had time yet. Tori got me the link, but I do plan on writing a review for it and everything too.
Oh
So
hell yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome. Thank you,
yeah,
man.
yeah, absolutely, man. I've had a great time talking to you. We'll definitely stay in touch because I really want to do that mental health episode with you,
Heck yeah.
and go down that road. So yeah, looking forward to it. Let's stay in touch, and I'm stoked for 2024 for what Hungover can really take the world by storm. And
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
yeah, absolutely, man.
All right.
All right, see ya.
See ya.